There are a few things that you should be checking on your drone before you send it up in the air. Now these checks are only going to take you a few seconds, but those few seconds could save you from a potential disaster. Now if I sound a bit off today, I've been pretty sick for the past couple of weeks. I'm just now starting to get over it, so you're gonna have to bear with me today on this one. But let me just get a quick show of hands. How many of you have ever just gone to the flying field, opened up the drone bag, taken the gimbal protector off, unfolded the arms, and then just sent the drone up in the air? Yeah, we've all done it. And I did this when I first started flying drones, but now I just take a few seconds to do a few extra checks, and these checks are going to make sure that my drone is not only going to be safe, but it's also going to be able to capture the stunning footage that I have in mind. Let's get into the first one. So the first thing we're going to cover is before you actually leave the house, you want to just do a quick check to make sure that you're on the latest firmware. Now, if it's a firmware update, I recommend that you just do this quickly before you head out to fly. Then if there are any new features or more safety things that have come in, you've got those on your drone. Now you don't have to do this every single time that you go out to fly, but do this periodically, you know, once every 2 or 3 flights or once a week, something like that, just to make sure that you're keeping your aircraft and controller up to date. The next thing we're going to want to do is we want to do some environmental checks. So the location that we're going to go to fly to, first of all, we need to make sure it's somewhere that we're actually allowed to fly. It's not in restricted spaces and things like that. Then we need to check the weather forecast, make sure it's not due to have a torrential rainstorm while we're out. That's not going to go down well. And also just check the wind. Now our drones are capable of flying in some pretty high winds, so we should be okay as long as it's not above that sort of 37km/h threshold. Now, if you want to know some extra tips on how to fly safely in the wind, I will link a video at the end of this one which is going to help you with that. So we're going to take a look now at the actual controller when setting up ready to fly. So when setting up the controller, once I've put the thumbsticks on, the first thing that I do is I take both sticks and I just move them all directions just to make sure they're nice and free. There's no binding or no grinding going on with my control sticks, so I make sure they're nice and free. And then I also just check my sliders at the back too, just to make sure they are behaving how I would expect them to. Then just unfold the antennas and get ready. Now we're going to move on to prepping our drone for flight. So when it comes to doing our pre-flight checks on the actual drone, I've made this really simple. So we just go through the normal process that we would do to set up our drone, but along the way we're just going to check a few things as we go. So the first thing we're going to do is take off the propeller guard. So once we do this, we're going to have a quick look underneath the drone just to make sure that all of our sensors are exactly how we expect them to be. There's no dirt on them, no damage. Make sure that they're nice and clean. And if everything is good, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be removing our gimbal cover. Now, when we remove the gimbal cover, we also just want to take a look inside at where the gimbal attaches to the body of the drone. Have a look at the gimbal rubbers there, make sure they're not perished, cracked, torn, or damaged in any way. Have a little feel of the gimbal, make sure that feels nice and smooth. And then we can also have a look up here at the different lenses that we have. So make sure that our camera lens is clean, and then also just check each of the visual 360-degree obstacle avoidance sensors to make sure they're all clean as well. If there's any dirt or grime on these lenses, the obstacle avoidance is not going to work as effectively as it should be. So then we're going to unfold all of the arms on our drone. And whilst we're doing this, we also just want to feel to make sure that it feels like the arms are sort of locking into place how we would expect them to do. There's no excess play, no funny noises or grinding whilst we're opening the arms as well. Once we're happy with that, we just want to have a quick visual inspection, have a good look at all the arms, make sure nothing here looks damaged or broken. Now this can be pretty obvious or it can be quite subtle. The chances are if you haven't had an accident, these arms are going to be absolutely fine, but we just want to have a quick visual check in case. So now everything's out and the drone is fully unfolded, we can go into checking the motors and propellers. Now to check the motors, all we want to do, hold the top and just a little twist backwards and forwards, just to make sure that they feel nice and free and smooth. Now we don't want to feel any grinding and we don't want any really excessive play in the motor housing. Once we're happy with that, we can check all of our propellers. Now propellers, it's normally pretty obvious to see signs of damage here. There'll either be bits missing or there'll be cracks in them. In this case, all of our propellers look absolutely fine. If you did have a damaged propeller, just want to swap it out for a new one. And we can move on to our next step, which is going to be checking that our battery is fully inserted. Give a little tug on the back there just to make sure that it's not coming out. If in doubt, take it out and put it back in. And then we just want a quick tap on the button there, make sure our lights come on. That lets us know that we've got power. First of all, we want to make sure we have enough power so we can actually complete the flight that we have in mind. And it also just lets us know that our battery is completely inserted. Then we want to check to make sure that we have our SD card in there. There have been a few times with the Mini 4 Pro that I've taken off without an SD card. And this is one of the reasons why I make that a preliminary check whilst doing the battery to check the SD card as well. So once all those checks are done, we're now ready to power on the drone and get it ready for flight. But there are some things we need to check after we've powered the drone on. So let's turn it on and get ready. Okay, so the drone is now sat there getting ready to take off. Now before I take off, I'm just going to do a quick few checks on the controller to make sure we're good to go. So I'm going to check up here for the GPS satellites. I've got 26 showing here, which is plenty. Nice GPS lock. If it's yellow or red, then you don't have enough GPS satellites to take off just yet. Wait for it to go white and for you to get a good GPS fix. And then I also want to take a look in the top left-hand corner. In this instance, it says takeoff is permitted. There are no warnings or anything like that for the area. So we're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to take the drone off and then we're just going to check a few things before we actually begin our flight. Okay, so now the drone is in the air and flying, we can do our final checks, which is we just want to see how the drone is behaving when it's hovering. Now in this instance, it's behaving exactly how I would expect it to. It's holding position, it's not changing in altitude, and there are no funny noises coming from the motors or anything. So in this instance, I'm more than happy to send this drone out there and start capturing some amazing footage. Now, if you've just got into flying drones and you want 10 cinematic drone moves that are going to transform the way that you capture footage, this video right here is going to give you the 10 most cinematic drone moves that you can use on the Mini 4 Pro. And if you want to learn how to fly in a windy situation, check out this video right here. It's going to give you all the necessary tips and tricks that you need. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.